Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today is January 12th, and we've got a big name off the market. Alex Bregman signs. Let's talk about it. Hello, everybody. My name is Steven. This is the middle of the order. How are we doing today, ladies and gentlemen? We have a small episode in terms of news, but boy, let me tell you, there are some big things to talk about. We're going to be using up a lot of time going over a couple of the news from the weekend here, and I just want to get right into it and get things going here because there is a lot to talk about. The Chicago Cubs, they are signing Alex Bregman. Yes, folks, you heard that right. Alex Bregman is now a member of the Chicago Cubs. He is signing a 5-year deal worth $175 million. Boy, oh boy. This takes me back just 2 days ago on Friday, 3 days ago, I guess. The last episode, we talked about the Cubs, and we talked about that missing piece that they needed. They traded for Edward Cabrera, but Kyle Tucker is still unsigned, and how do you replace that value of Kyle Tucker? Insert Alex Bregman, and it's really cool. There's a lot of cool things about this deal that, that we'll get into. But first, of course, let's get into the Alex Bregman part of it all. If you don't know Alex Bregman, he is a very good ball player. He is a 3-time All-Star, 2-time World Series winner. He's got a Gold Glove. He's got a Silver Slugger. He was an All-Star Game MVP. And mind you, he has finished in the MVP voting plenty times, including second, falling just behind Ohtani in 2019. I believe that year was Ohtani, right? He's also finished 5th in MVP voting, as well as 22nd and 19 over the course of his 10-year career, 9 years with Houston and 1 year with the Red Sox. Of course, that was last year after 9 seasons with the Astros. Bregman hit free agency for the first time, ended up signing a 3-year deal with the Red Sox with opt-outs after each of the years. And after this first season, he did take that exact opt-out. That's how he ended it back in the free agency class. And now signing a 5-year deal with the Chicago Cubs. Now, there's plenty of places to go here. The deal with Bregman, 5 years, $175 million. There is, I believe, up to $70 million of deferrals, and also includes a full no-trade clause. And if you're not exactly sure what that is, it's similar to what Nolan Arenado has with the Cardinals with his contract. Basically, any trade that the Cubs want to do with Bregman to trade him anywhere, Alex Bregman has the full say of if that trade is allowed to go through or not. The team cannot deal him unless they get Bregman's permission to do so. And this is something that we are seeing from time to time in certain players' contracts. With some players, they want to know where they're going to be in 5-10 years, and that's why they ask for those full no trade clauses. So they have the choice, and they can't just be shipped randomly, willy-nilly, whenever. Which is something that was important to Bregman. As we get more and more reports that will, I'm assuming, come out throughout the days here. One thing that we did read with Alex Bregman was that he has 2 young kids. In finding a permanent home was important for Alex Bregman, for his family, because of how, he hasn't had his press conference or anything, but what the reports are saying is that it's been a little bit hectic for his family. I mean, 2 years ago, he was with Houston. Last year, he's with Boston. Now he's with the Cubs. That's 3 years, 3 different cities, 3 different states, etc. That can be chaotic for a family with 2 young kids trying to go to schools and all this other stuff here. So it was really important to Alex Bregman that he ended up with that full no-trade clause. That's what he was looking for here. A report came out here from Buster Olney that said the Red Sox thought they were going to get Bregman with that 5-year, $165 million deal, with the deal from last year, that would have been 6 years, over $205 million with the deferrals. And that there was real disappointment in the organization. And that is for a few reasons, I'm sure. What also has come out here is that the Red Sox, with their deal being $10 million shorter, I'm not sure how much that played a factor in Bregman's decision, but the Red Sox wouldn't bend on their refusal to grant a full no-trade clause, citing organizational policy. So the Red Sox, in their club's history, has never given out a full no-trade clause. It's just something that their team does not do. Bregman, of course, asking for it, looking for it. Red Sox saying, no, it's not how we operate here. And Bregman says, okay, I'm going to go over here where they will give me that, plus $10 more million. So it kind of sounds like Boston, that felt super good and confident about re-signing Bregman, that they were going to land him, and Bregman just needed the full no-trade clause. Like, he probably would have signed with Boston if he got that deal and taken the 10 less million that the Cubs offered, you would think, the way these reports are sounding. But listen, Bregman is a great ball player, and if you're Boston, you know, times change, policies change. Like, the Yankees changed their no beard policy, right? So I mean, like, if this was that important to you, and like, I'm sure in the meetings you could tell how important it was to Bregman, you know, times are changing. What, you want to be able to dump him off on another team just like you did Devers? Like, I don't know where their stance was here. Bregman last year with Boston, 114 games, 118 hits, including 18 home runs, which was the lowest amount of home runs he had had since 2021, where he had hit 12 home runs that year. He only played in 91 games as well, dealing with injuries. This year, he had a 273 slash line there, an 821 OPS, which was his highest OPS that he had had since 2019. That was his crazy year where he had a 1.OPS, 1.15 there, where he had 112 RBIs, 41 home runs, nearly a 9-point WAR. It was 8.9. That was Alex Bregman's career year, his best year of his career, 2019. So a few years removed off of that, but he still puts up fantastic numbers. His home runs sit about mid-20s. He drives in, you know, upwards of 90 RBIs a season. He is great value, great production, and the Cubs are lucky to get him. And like I said, the Cubs, they were short on, you know, that star element to complement their team here, losing out on Tucker right now. Not that Tucker can't re-sign with the Cubs. Of course, this deal makes it even more clear that that might not happen. But Bregman, you know, he slots in at third place. He slots in, you know, second in the lineup around Ian Happ and Suzuki. You mix in P. Crow Armstrong here. Like, the Cubs could, again, be a threat on a usually weaker NL Central division here. What's really fun, Dansby Swanson in 2015, he was the first overall pick by Arizona, the 1-1. Alex Bregman, he was the second overall pick by Houston, the 1-2. And now the Cubs have a left side of the infield with the first two overall picks in the 2015 draft. I thought that was really cool. Not only that, but they also have Ian Happ, who was drafted 9th overall in 2015. So they have three players who were drafted top 10 in their starting 9. I think that's pretty cool, and want to throw that little fact out there. So Alex Bregman, great for him, obviously. You know, he gets what he wants in terms of the no trade clause. He gets a nice, you know, about $35 million a year AAV. Of course, the deferrals will then happen. And now we have to look at the other side of things, right? Because this is the Cubs side, this is the Bregman side, the whole happy story, the whole happy ending. You know, Cubs are happy, they get a great player. Bregman's happy, he gets what he wants. We have to look at it from the aspect of Boston now, because as we did mention, Boston offered 5 years, 165. They felt pretty good with that, despite having the no trade clause for Alex Bregman here. And now you're left kind of screwed in a way. If I'm going to be honest here, we go back to the beginning of the season where, you know, you have Boston starting the year with 2 all-star third baseman in Rafael Devers and Alex Bregman. The Red Sox, they go out, they sign Bregman, defensively, way better than Devers. Offensively, not as good, but Bregman can still hold his own, but obviously Devers' power and Devers' numbers, I mean, they are insane. But the glove aspect does not matter. The glove aspect is a completely different game. Bregman clearly takes the cake there. So after that signing, it begins to have this conversation of, okay, well, Devers, we're moving you now to DH. And then obviously when Tristan Casas goes down with first base, the idea is, hey, Devers, let's try you out at first base. They're doing all these things. And we had Devers being like, well, no, because I'm supposed to be the third baseman. You guys almost forced my hand to now move to the DH, and now you want me to be first base again and play like you're messing with me. And at the time, we're all saying, what are you doing, Rafael? Like, you're getting paid all this money. Like, just be the team player, be that face of the franchise that you are. Make these decisions. And obviously, we're not saying that he was completely at fault here. This is definitely also on the Red Sox. But at the time, you go back to like April, May, we're saying, no, hey, listen, Devers. We're more on Devers to be like, hey, this is a job. Do your job. That's what it came down to was, hey, do your job. And that never ended up happening. The relationship eventually, becomes unsalvageable. I mean, you got three heads here in terms of the Red Sox organization and Devers busting parts. I mean, this is the face of your franchise. You're supposed to work with him, and they were almost working against him from the start of the season. So they end up shipping him to the Giants. And then we all are like, wow, well, this is a crazy move and a crazy decision by Boston to just be like, you know what? Here you go. And by the way, what they got was Jose Bello, who knows, James Tibbs, who, again, who knows, Kyle Harrison, so, maybe can figure it out, top prospect, but hasn't really yet. And then Jordan Hicks, which is like, sure. So there's that deal that happens, and we're thinking, what is going on here? The more stories come out, and I'm sure this will be something that is always brought up in terms of, Devers and the Red Sox and stories and little snippets of what was really going on in the organization. But we're almost like, okay, really, Boston, now this is crazy for you because you just traded away the face of your franchise for maybe, dimes on the dollar? It was really a crazy move. Devers definitely played worse as a Giant than he did as a Red Sox last year. Played 90 games with the Giants, had 20 home runs, an 807 OPS. When he was with Boston, he played in 73 games, 74 hits. He had 15 home runs and a 905 OPS. So the OPS obviously dropped. Everything kind of went down a little bit. But he was still a good ball player for the Giants. And again, mid-season, you're now going from the East Coast Boston to West Coast San Francisco. It is a complete 180. I'm not going to fault Devers. I'm not saying you wouldn't, for having a little bit of an adjustment period. That is a crazy change, especially when you've been 8 years strong with Boston since 2017 and have been that face of the franchise with multiple Silver Sluggers and multiple All-Stars and multiple top 20 MVP finishes. I mean, you start to wonder, why? For Alex Bregman, really, they chose Alex Bregman over Devers. That was kind of what we all said. This is eventually what happened between Boston and Devers. So, Boston starts the year 2015, 2 all-star third basemen. They're going to enter 2026, as it stands now, with no all-star third basemen. And that just gets me to think, why? Why did they trade Devers? Why did they do this? Why did they force him to do all these things and make these decisions behind his back, right? That's Devers. At the end of the day, Devers, yes, it's a job. You're getting paid all this money. Play third base, play first base, play DH, wherever they want to play you. Do your that's the first thought. But at the same time, too, if you go to a job and they tell you, hey, this is your job, and then the next day they make you completely change your job and give you this whole other difference of things to do, and I'm sure everyone who's listening to this, you're gonna be like, what the hell? Like, no, that's not the job I signed up for. That's not what you guys are paying me. Like, I got, this is my job. This is what I do. You can't just give me completely new jobs the very next day. That kind of seems like what it was happening between Boston and Devers. The Red Sox were doing all these decisions about Devers and the player that he is without at least talking to him and consulting him, at least bringing him in on these conversations. It seems like they were having these discussions without him present. And then when they told him about it and he had, fairly enough discourse and like, hey, like, let's talk about this for a second. Let's actually be reasonable. The Red Sox say, no, thank you, ship you off to Giants. We're going to focus on Bregman. And then Bregman's like, you're not going to give me your full trade clause because of your policy. Bye-bye. And now you're left with nothing. So, I mean, at the time, I was still thinking the Giants completely won that trade and that Boston was ridiculous. Now that Bregman has signed with the Cubs, I think that trade is even more ridiculous. And I think the Red Sox, despite being all this historical team and all these great things, they also are a ridiculous franchise. Like, how do you let that happen? You just made the postseason for the second time since winning it all in 2019. You took a 2-year break, obviously COVID, and then, you got back in 2021. Right? That was the year you got back. You made it all the way to the ALCS before losing. Then you take 3 years off where you guys are not good. 78 wins, 81 wins. Like, yeah, that's about average, but for a Boston team, for a New York team, the Yankees and the Red Sox, that is bad. You finally make it back to the playoffs to lose to the Yankees in the wild card. And your plan so far has been, okay, we traded Devers in the regular season. Now we lose Bregman. Okay, who's gonna play third base now? Like, what are we doing? Like, I can't comprehend the Red Sox situation here and the position that they themselves have put on them. Like, I don't understand why you would break a relationship with your face of the franchise who, the whole fan base loves, that you love, that produces on so many levels. I mean, Devers' stats with the Red Sox are incredible. I mean, over 200 home runs, over 700 RBIs, an OPS of about 840, 850. Like, those are insane numbers. And you let that walk, and for why? I can't comprehend this. You look at third baseman now, I mean, on the market, what, Yoan Moncada? Like, the real best bet here is Eugenio Suarez, but, like, that's a lot of strikeouts you're adding to a team. The power is there, obviously, and I think Suarez is the best pivot here for Boston. I mean, otherwise, you got, what, Marcelo Meyer, who I guess moves to third base. That's what Fangraphs has it listed as right now. The team I'm looking at on paper here for Boston on Fangraphs, yeah, you trade for Wilson Contreras. That locks up first base for a little bit. What happens when Tristan Casas comes back from injury? Because you have Duran as your DH, you have Anthony in left, you have Rafaela in center, and Wilyer Abreu in right. So that's 4 outfielders right there. If Casas comes in, what, you're going to move Wilson Contreras back to catcher? You have Carlos Navarez. You have all these positions locked. You have extra depth in some of them. But you have this left side of the infield with Trevor Story as short, sure. Rami Gonzalez is at second, Marcelo Meyer at third. Obviously, Meyer, short sample size in the majors. He's a top prospect. He got hurt towards the end of the year. You'd want to see what he has, whether it is at third, second, whatever. I feel like there's an addition that needs to happen here because this is the exact same lineup. You're just switching out Alex Bregman for Wilson Contreras, which, to me, is a downgrade. No offense to Wilson Contreras, is a good ball player, but you're going from the Alex Bregman level production, the all-star year that he had, when all you had to do was, maybe move Bregman to second, or leave Devers as the DH, find a different replacement at first base when Casas goes down with his injury, and go through the season with your 2 all-star third basemen. And then when you end up in the situation where, oh no, Alex Bregman just signed with the Cubs, good thing, Devers, you can go back to third base, and everyone is happy. Instead, the Red Sox are disappointed and they're all upset and they have hurt feelings because of Bregman, because we traded away the face of our franchise for you for 114 games. You traded away a 9-year face of the franchise who was one of your last remaining pieces of your 2018 World Series win because you wanted Alex Bregman's better defensive glove for 114 games, and now you're left with nothing. And personally, I don't feel bad. This is something that you as a franchise cannot let that happen. You cannot let that happen. Easiest, like that is the best way to put it. The Boston Red Sox have royally screwed this up for themselves. And I think there is no one to blame but the Red Sox organization. Like that is, like, I want to say unacceptable. Like, obviously we're not, the head honcho there. We're not part of the Red Sox management. We as fans can only speculate what was actually going on, the conversations that were being had. But when you lay out these facts on the table, hey, you have 2 all-star third basemen. One of them is a face of your franchise, and you're going to trade him away because he doesn't want to play first base. And the haul you got back wasn't even that great to begin with. And then the guy that you brought over to replace him, the guy that you traded him away for to keep, only ends up playing 114 games before he leaves also. And I mean, yeah, it's speechless, really. It's a royal mess up from the Boston Red Sox point of view. Okay, now, so moving on, there isn't much else to talk about, but there is a couple of sprinkles here. The first one being that Max Kepler, he has received an 80-game suspension related to a failed PED test. And this is certainly interesting. It always ends up being a little interesting when someone gets docked with one of these, because you're always, in today's day and age, like, was it really were you really trying to cheat the game kind of, or were you just, doing something for yourself and didn't realize and yada yada. Regardless, it is interesting for a guy like Max Kepler, who has an 11-year career, all of which was with Minnesota until last year. He spent with Philly. He played in 127 games. He had 90 hits and a 691 OPS. Max Kepler was once a, looking like a sharp on-the-scene ball player here. In 2019, that was his career year. He had a 4 WAR. He had 132 hits. He had 36 home runs and an 855 OPS. And really, since then, since COVID and everything, his numbers have really continued to drop. He had one really solid year with the Twins in 2023, where he hit 24 home runs, which is the most he had hit besides that 2019 season where he popped off with 36. Last year, with the Phillies, he only ends up hitting 18 home runs. His batting average, .216, which was the worst in his career, one of the worst in his career. He did have 2021 where he had a .211 batting average, but he still popped more home runs that year, and his OPS numbers favor 2021. He had a .691 OPS last year with the Phillies. That is a career low outside of 2022. So it was a bad year for him overall, not maybe some of his worst years. But it is interesting, especially because it was only a 1-year contract that he signed with Philly. So now you have essentially a free agent who, when he signs, is going to miss half of the season. So you're now Max Kepler, if he is looking for a deal, his 1-year contract is essentially an 82-game contract because you're going to miss 80 games with the suspension. I don't know how much that hurts. Like, it obviously hurts him. I'm not going to say it doesn't. I don't know how much it actually does, though. Would a team still want a guy like Max Kepler? Like, his numbers aren't all that great, so what are you going to pay him? Or have we already seen the last of Max Kepler? Like, I don't know. There are some guys who you feel like they still have a lot left to give to the game, and then because of some of these young talents and because of how much contract can cost for some teams, you end up with some players who, you know, you feel like could still be valuable assets to a ball club, and they end up being out of the game. You know, I think of Yasiel Puig as a great example. I think of JD Martinez as a great example. Like, I don't know. I still really don't know why no team wanted to sign JD Martinez that offseason. Like, he had a really good year. You know, like, yeah, his numbers were still down, but again, he was still very good. Like, I don't understand why some players end up leaving the league. Some players end up sticking around like a rodent and just end up, you know, always on a team, always finding a space for themselves to slot into a roster spot. And then some guys who you feel like, you know, they still have assets to give and value to bring to a team, and they never end up playing Major League Baseball again. Like, I don't know if we've already seen the last of Max Kepler again. His numbers would suggest that he is on the decline. But, you know, he's still early 30s. Like, he still could find a way to continue to bounce back. As I said, 2023 was a very sharp year for him. You know, 2021, 22, 24, 25, you know, there were some hiccups in the way, you know, an aspect or two of his game wasn't truly there, whether it was contact or power or defense, dealing with injuries, you know, but 2023 was still good. That was 2 years ago. So, like, you know, it's easy to just kind of revert back to that if you really wanted to. So the question now will be, will a team want to sign Kepler to a deal here, knowing that he has an 80-game suspension tied with him? I'm sure there will be a team looking at that, and that will definitely help in terms of financials, because obviously if, let's say, Kepler was supposed to get $8 million, now you're looking at $3 million, $4 million, right? Like, it definitely shaves off some value here for some teams. And while some teams will be bothered about the 80-game suspension, other teams will use it as a way to get a decent ball player on a steal deal. So that's kind of where I'm thinking the Max Kepler thing will head. We'll see more information as that follows. But for now, that is what we have from the news from the weekend here. And then we had two other signings here, some small signings. First one being the Reds signing Pierce Johnson to a one-year deal worth $6.5 million. Pierce Johnson, you know, he's had down years and hasn't been a fantastic pitcher in the past, but last year with Atlanta, I gotta say, probably his best year of his career. At the age of 34, he played in 65 games out of the bullpen, a 3.05 ERA, 59 innings, only gave up 20 earned runs, 8 home runs, striking out 59 batters, so 1 strikeout per inning, essentially, with a 3.05 ERA, a 3-3 record, tying a career high in WAR at 1.1, and honestly, a really solid year for him. I mean, he's definitely, you know, since joining Atlanta in 2023, he's kind of figured it out a little bit. You know, like 2.5 seasons with the Braves, he's played in 147 games, a 2.91 ERA. That is some of the best pitching he's done in his career, which started all the way back in 2017 with the Cubs, where he played in 1 game, but then came in with the Giants the next year, and in 37 games had a 5.56 ERA. So definitely a tale of, you know, beginner's luck, 1 inning, bang, bomb. But yeah, since Atlanta here, since turning 32 years old, he has really sharpened his stuff up a little bit. He's been a lot more consistent out of the bullpen, and the Reds are hoping that he will stay with that consistency and help them battle for a potential NL Central, because the Reds, of course, made the postseason. They'll be hunting to get back there in 2026. So Pierce Johnson, he will join the Cincinnati Reds. And then Andy Ibanez is signing a deal with the Los Angeles Dodgers, the World Series champion. Of course, Ibanez coming over from Detroit. It's a 1-year deal worth $1.2 million. Essentially is middle of the infield depth for the Dodgers. Ibanez in a 5-year stint in his major league career, 2 years with Texas and 3 years with Detroit. He's gotten 28 home runs, a 254 batting average, a 694 OPS. His best year, I would say, would have been 2023, where he got into 114 games. It's the only year of his career where he's gotten into over 100 games. So both times with Texas and Detroit, he's kind of just been, a platoon utility guy, bench player who will get some pinch hit appearances and some attempts there, but, isn't truly your everyday starter here. And that's kind of what the Dodgers are signing him for, is a guy who will hit a lefty really hard, has that nice swing to rope a ball down the line for a double in a situation where you have a runner on, scoring position. So yeah, and Ibanez goes to World Series team where, I think he'll know his place there. Is he's not going to be a starter unless there's some crazy injuries that they have to deal with here. But he knows that he's going to get some reps there. He's going to get some time, and when he needs them and when he needs to play, he's going to go out there and put his all on the line for a team that is the best in baseball, and taking a shot on them. So that's what you get with the Andy Ibanez situation. So Ibanez and Johnson, both of them sign. And that pretty much takes us to the end of the episode. Like I said, wasn't a whole lot to talk about in terms of the news. It just so happened that the news to be talked about was pretty big. Of course, Alex Bregman, one of those big fishes that we keep bringing up, saying, oh, Tucker's unsigned, Bo Bichette's unsigned, Bellinger, and Framber, and Suarez, and Bellinger. I think I said Bellinger twice. And Bregman. Bregman is finally off the board, and I think that will truly help us here. Again, we are in January. We're closing in on free agency. 5 weeks away now? 6 weeks. So now that Bregman signs, that kind of rules one team off the table from everybody else. And then someone else is going to sign Tucker, and then someone's going to sign Bo. Apparently Bichette was meeting with the Phillies today. That was the rumor. That's what we were told. So maybe, we're going to come back on Friday and be, hey, Bo Bichette has signed with the Philadelphia Phillies or something, right? So who knows? But for now, Bregman is a Cub. Red Sox are left without a third baseman. Do they make a trade? Do they sign Suarez? Do they move Marcelo Mayer there? There will be plenty of questions for the Red Sox, but that is a mess up on their end here. But yeah, that's going to do it for us here today, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate y'all listening. Love you. Thank you very much. You all have fantastic days, fantastic weeks. And yeah, so I will see you next time.